I'd say, depending on the location, of course, you can put as little as 3.5% down, and typically like 10K or so, 10 to 15K, I would say to start off with, would be viable.
Welcome back to the Money Seed Podcast. My guest today is Ariel Herrera. Ariel is an entrepreneur. She's a real estate expert, and she has one of the most amazing stories about real estate and entrepreneurship we've heard in quite a while. Ariel recently started the company Coffee Clozers to help other real estate investors get into real estate, including out-of-state investors and people who are doing remote investing. Ariel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Super excited to be here.
Ariel, I love your story, your personal story of how you got into real estate. What have you done in the short time that you've been in the space? Now you have your own company called Coffee Closers that's actually involved in helping people invest in real estate. But let's take it back to the beginning. I think you got started in real estate about 5 years ago. And I think
Yes.
at that time you had a W-2 job. You were doing something completely different from real estate. Maybe tell us a little bit, what prompted you to start this real estate journey?
Sure. So, about 5 years ago, as I was working as a data scientist in New York City, I was doing the routine commute that a lot of folks in the tri state area do. Mine was on a bus, commuting 2 hours into New York City and 2 hours back. And at some point, as I was staring at the New York City skyline at 6 a.m. in the morning, I thought to myself, this is not going to work for me for the next 30 years. I'm so tired when I come home. I don't have the full energy to give towards my family and friends. I need to find an avenue that I can take that if I wanted to take a break at some point working, I could. And that's when I started to look at financial freedom options. So, as most people do, when you go and search on Google financial freedom, you see several different options, perhaps starting the next big blog or Amazon fulfillment or even stock trading. But the one that really spoke to me was real estate, specifically because it's been done for hundreds of years, even thousands, and has been successful with people who have less resources than myself. So that's why I decided to jump into real estate. And I spent about 9 months or so reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts. And ultimately, I told myself, all right, it's time, 9 months, you need to find your first deal. So as I started to look at properties in New Jersey that were in a close proximity to New York, I started to analyze my own deals and realized, oh my God, the data is everywhere. It's all over the place. Just to analyze a single deal, taking it from Zillow into a spreadsheet is taking me so long. Maybe this whole real estate thing isn't cut out for me. But then I reflected back and thought, how can I use my data analytics skills to help me? So as I started to try to pull data automatically and use different tools to help with my process and streamline it, I created a YouTube channel to kind of showcase all the learnings that I had because I thought, hey, if I'm having these problems, someone else may be as well. And since then, I've been able to accumulate 6 units. I've also been able to do long-term rental, short-term rental, and ultimately really build a community of other people who are focused in real estate and technology.
Okay, there's a lot to get into there. What were some of the books and podcasts that you came across at the beginning that were really influential?
So for real estate, Bigger Pockets, I think they have an excellent whole just avenue of different books and forums to read. As well, I did a lot of like entrepreneurship books too, because you have to get yourself into a particular mindset. It can be really scary to say, hey, I'm going to start essentially my own business by having a house of some sort that I'm renting out to strangers. Are they going to pay me on time? How is this all going to work? But if you read books about other entrepreneurs, even one like 10X by Grant Cardone, you kind of get into this mindset where it's kind of like do or die. Like you have to get this done no matter what. The whole fear thing needs to drop off because you really need to just be an action taker. So those are the types of resources that I utilize when getting started.
Love it. So how much money do people need to get started in real estate? And I think at the time you were in the New York, New Jersey area, so I'm guessing it probably wasn't the least expensive area to be in, but how much money do people need?
I'd say, depending on the location, of course, you can put as little as 3.5% down, and typically like 10K or so, 10 to 15K, I would say, to start off with, would be viable.
When you say 3.5%, are you referring to FHA loans or something similar?
Yeah, so that's one of the big misconceptions in real estate is that you need 20% down. So say if the home is $200,000, then you need $40,000 down. Well, that actually isn't the case. The government has a lot of loans that support those who are getting their first properties. And with that, FHA is one of those where you can put 3.5% down and even have a credit score that may not be deemed excellent to be able to acquire your first property.
So tell us about the very first property you acquired.
My first property was in South Amboy, New Jersey. And before I detail what the numbers looked like on that property, how I selected it, I was really focused on location. So for me, having time on my side, starting to invest in my 20s, I was looking at appreciation, something that could become the next Hoboken, Jersey City, or just hotspot in the future. So I was looking at cities that were about 50 miles from New York City, so that commutes would be under 1 hour time frame. And I was looking at train lines because traffic can get really like bottled up. So that left me with two different train lines going across New Jersey and going towards the shoreline. Going across was highly more expensive, homes around 700K or so, whereas in the shorelines were about 200 to 300K. So that helped me narrow down into three potential markets. And ultimately, I chose South Amboy because they had a new ferry that was coming. So looking at new development and just checking out Google News, searching, hey, what new development is coming to XYZ city is enough to be able to gain some of that information. So that first deal, I wanted it to be a house hack or actually a multifamily house hack so I could live in one unit and rent out the other. But of course, New Jersey being expensive, those were out of my price range. So instead, I did a single family home that was 2 beds and 2 baths. Now, how I selected that, I was looking to see if I could add value. So although I couldn't get that multifamily home, how can I somehow add value to really maximize my cash flow? And the way I did that was speaking to my agent friend and getting an entire list of what for sale listings were in South Amboy. And I did a really quick metric to see ratio of beds to square footage because my idea was maybe there's some home that has some extra space that I can add a bedroom to. So in this case, I found this one quirky home that was about 1,300 square feet or so and had 2 bedrooms, which New Jersey in that landscape, it seemed like we could probably squeeze a third somewhere, maybe an extra dining room. And when I actually toured the property, it was built in the 1910s. And on the second floor, the master bedroom was actually facing the street, which is really odd. Usually master bedrooms are towards the back of the home, or bedrooms. So when I actually looked at the bedroom, it was really large and it had 2 closets on either side and 2 windows. Like it seemed like it was at some point 2 separate bedrooms. And actually going to the county records, it was. So the flipper that recently fixed it up, kind of merge those 2 bedrooms together. But I was able to kind of do a quick wall divider and be able to have that as a 3 bedroom.
Nice. So you bought a 2 bedroom property and then you were able to quickly turn it into a 3 bedroom. And I imagine you unlocked some value that way.
Yes, exactly.
And then you moved in. Did you rent out some of the rooms for extra monthly cash flow?
I did. And it worked out for me because I actually rented out to people I knew, like relatives and such, rather than just going straight towards like the stranger route, which is a great route as well. But it helped me kind of get comfortable, my feet wet, into becoming a landlord.
So then you still have your day job, right? You're still commuting to New York City as a data scientist. Now it sounds like your commute is a lot shorter. Now you have extra cash flow because you have some friends and family living in the home, giving you extra money every month. How long did you wait before you got your second property?
Okay, this is great because I ended up only paying myself $600 a month towards the mortgage because the rest of it was covered since I was doing this house hacking strategy. So, working a W-2, doing well, getting a raise, being able to have such a low amount of expenses and being frugal at the same time, I was able to actually save up for the next property within 9 months.
Wow, amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So then how did you scale? Tell us a little bit more because every one of these homes, it takes time. Takes time to find it, takes time, takes money, takes time to get all the money ready for the down payment. You got to manage it somehow. There's probably some rehab work you got to do before it's ready to rent, etc. So tell me about the second, third, fourth. How did you scale?
Yeah, so scaling was really trying to understand other markets, not just the ones in my backyard. Because New Jersey is a little bit more high priced, I was looking at, say, the Midwest. I spoke to other folks just in my network. So other people who were looking to get into real estate or were a part of like real estate groups. And a lot of people were mentioning Detroit as an area that, had a lot of issues at some point after the recession in '08, but there was a lot of focus and money being poured into it for redevelopment for the long term. And going back to my strategy of, I want to hold on to something for 30 years, I thought maybe this could be a great play. So looking at Detroit, I spoke to an agent as well as property managers, ended up flying out there and purchased a duplex for 135K, which I was able to get a pretty good deal on that one, which I could detail after. But that really helped to open my mindset of, you know what, it doesn't have to just be in my backyard. Now I'm getting more comfortable becoming a landlord, understanding a market, trusting the process, that I could begin to explore outside of the state.
I've heard some people say that sometimes it's actually easier to manage something out of state because you don't have that urge to go fix it yourself, right?
Yes.
You have to call someone else to do it. So you're forced to outsource everything from the property management to, fixing this and fixing that. So yeah, good for you. So you got this duplex in Detroit. Maybe tell us a little bit more about how do you approach it when you see a property? What are some of the things you look at? You talked about the market. You talked about areas that are growing or close to big cities that are, developing in the future. But when you look at just the numbers, whether it's cash flow or cap rate or cash on cash or long-term appreciation, what are some of the numbers that you look for when you're analyzing a deal?
Sure. So for the deal itself, I look for cash flow. I look for a minimum of $300. Now that's not going to help me be financially free just having each property 300 cash flow. But if I'm playing the long game of appreciation over time, as well as holding onto the properties, rents rising, then I know at a future state, those cash flow numbers could be times three, for example. When it comes to appreciation, I look for areas that have had growth over the last like 10 years, even if it's stable, like 2, 3%. But there's some sort of like spike in the last 3 years or so. And you could actually use Redfin if you type in any city and just do like city insights. They have like what median sale price as well as list price has been over the last 5 years. It's a really fun tool. So that's one you could use. As well, a big part is using Google News and just looking at what new developments are occurring and seeing the proximity to the house. And my own strategy is also looking at transportation. So I'm really big on this. And I always look for a place that's within about 50 minutes driving, or actually probably less, like 45 minutes driving to an airport that has the ability to take transit into a major city for work. I prefer trains, but buses are good as well. And an example that I have for this is that Tampa, Florida, when I was thinking about investing there, one of the major reasons that I wanted to was because the Brightline train was going to be built in probably the next year or so. It's going to start to be built. So the Brightline is a train that can take you from Tampa to Orlando at a high speed rate, which makes so it could really improve like the job employment area because people can get to and from the cities really quickly rather than spending a 2 hour commute. So these are just little things that I look for. And even if it's not established right now, I look to see if in the next 5 years, these transportation methods will be available.
You hit on Redfin there a moment ago and about how Redfin has some tools about markets, etc. You recently started a company called Clozers. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's probably a good segue into data analytics and how you pull all these different sources of information to find the hottest markets.
Definitely. So the main issue that I kept seeing across the 4 years of having a YouTube channel was that it was so manual for folks to be able to analyze a deal, taking information from Zillow into a spreadsheet and then cross-checking that with economic stats from like the US Census, Fred, etc. By the time you do all of that, the deal could be gone. So based on the community's feedback, me and two other co-founders developed a product called Clozers, which helps to automate that entire process. So we help you find the best cities, neighborhoods, and deals to invest in based upon your strategy. So all those previous numbers are automatically calculated so that you could quickly analyze for a particular city, maybe like San Antonio that could have 7,000 listings. How do you bring that down just to maybe the 10 listings that matter for your turnkey strategy? So we help you using data analytics and using a variety of sources to gather that information and instantly within minutes be able to help make a decision.
I imagine you got all kinds of different data sources going into that application, but maybe tell us about the top 5 or 6 that are critical. I mean, you mentioned things like population growth and maybe cash flow, but what are some of the top things you look for?
Yeah, one of the most exciting things that I've been able to work on since leaving my W-2 a couple of months ago is neighborhood maps. So really understanding not just a city to invest in, but what actual like blocks or areas within there could be an A, B, C, or D neighborhood. So to do that, we look at economic stats like median household income, population growth, education. But these are not new. Many other maps have done this before. And the main issue with these stats is that they usually come from the US Census, which acquires the data between 1 to 2 years outdated. So in a fast moving market, that's kind of stale. You want to see what's happening right now. So we also append that information by looking at market stats. So how has the market even moved? What are prices looking like? This helps us to see, oh, in the last 6 months, this particular area has had a lot of new builds and prices are going up. This could be a potential spot to really look into because it's transitioning from a C to a B area. So by kind of aggregating that information and presenting it on a map really helps to gain those insights of not just what city, but actually what neighborhoods to possibly invest in.
And how much does a membership cost to Coffee Closers?
It starts off at $25 for a single city. We are available nationwide, and we aim to make sure that folks can actually utilize the product before even paying. So we have a 7-day free trial across 50 major cities in the US, which you can kind of play around with, run some of the numbers yourself, and then commit to a plan if you'd like.
What are your 5 favorite markets in the US right now?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to say Tampa, Florida, because that's just my market. And I see so much growth still continuing to happen as I even walk down the streets. In terms of by the numbers, Detroit is, I think, still a great market to get into now before potential really like revitalization is complete at some point. I also really like the whole South Carolina, North Carolina markets, like Durham as well. And Texas, I see a lot of like Austin and such, like those cities are kind of starting to get capped out. So possibly didn't get to ride onto that growth wave. But there are some other like areas around the major cities of Austin and Dallas, like even like Fort Worth, that are also doing pretty well.
And what is it like these days with the high interest rates and property prices increasing quite rapidly? Is it still possible to find cash flowing properties? I mean, you mentioned $300 a month being kind of like your sweet spot, but is it still possible to find those deals?
It is, but it's a lot tougher. So finding those cash flowing deals could mean going into a D or C neighborhood, which depending on your strategy, that may be what you're looking for. For myself, I look more for like C plus, B minus, and cash flow is starting to get really minimal there. So really becomes important to look at value add opportunities where you can add a bedroom, possibly a mother-in-law suite in the back, or even go towards other strategies like house hacking, renting by the room, or medium-term rentals to really be able to leverage your investment.
So you got started in real estate in 2019. You've acquired 5 or 6 properties by now. Right now, as you and I are speaking, it's 2024, May. And it sounds like, if I heard you correctly, you just quit your W-2 job a few months back. Tell
Yes,
us
I
a little bit
did.
more. Tell us more about that transition. And what does your day look like now? What does your day and your typical week look like?
Yes, we started Coffee Closers in 2023, received funding from an angel investor out in Silicon Valley. Started really working hard on it in August of 2023. And my days were pretty jam-packed throughout that rest of the year. And once we started to get a lot of traction towards the end of 2023 is when I realized it's kind of sink or swim. Either I put my all into it and see how we can make a company of a team of three to be maybe a really powerful company down the line. Or, kind of fall back in my W-2 and say, well, that was a fun thing that I tried for a bit. So as being someone who's entrepreneurship spirit and bold, of course, I went with the first option. It was a bit scary, especially getting some feedback from family and friends. Like, do you really want to do this? You're not going to get that consistent check that you currently get. But luckily, by having kind of a platform, so having the rental properties that I have, as well as tools that I built for the community over the last several years, I do have some consistent passive income that has allowed me to leave my W-2 job confidently and be on this project full time.
When you say full time, I know that for some entrepreneurs, full time is like 20 hours a day, but like seriously, how busy are things right now?
I'd say so. I have a system where it's kind of like go hard, then take like medium breaks. So Monday through Thursday, it's pretty much like wake up to go to sleep. So like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. or so, it's coding, communication, trying to gather some more insights, and then weekend time, always try to spend time with family and friends. I think that's kind of like if I have like a battery, that's like my energy boost. Being able to be with folks that can ground me and also help me get out of the corner of my room, which I love, but at some point you have to step away from the computer and be able to really see everything as a whole. So with that, I think it's pretty balanced.
About the real estate industry, where do you see the industry going in the next, say, 5 or 10 years?
I think it's going to get even harder to be able to afford property. I think we're going to see a lot more people become forever renters, which is things I'm not happy about, and many people are not. There's a lot of policies that are changing to try to help with that. So, say for example, in California, allowing a lot more ADUs, accessory dwelling units. But then again, that's still like it's solving a problem to an extent, but the whole classic, like be able to have your own property, your own space, the whole fence inside is yours. I'm not sure how long that will last, which is why I really try to push folks to at least acquire, your first home as one that you're living in with yourself or your friends or your family. From there, you could decide, the next 1 to 2 years if you maybe want to go the investment route and be able to rent out your current home. But to just get started on the property ladder is huge.
I couldn't agree more. And on a personal level, Ariel, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see me continuing to be CTO of Coffee Closers, hopefully even more so of a bigger team, bigger impact. As well for real estate, I would like to get to myself at a higher scale, likely have 50 units under management. We'll see. And personally, would love to still have a close connection with family and friends, possibly do a big Europe vacation down the line.
Tell us more about your YouTube channel, Coffee Closers, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Tech and Real Estate. We bridge the gap between real estate and technology. You can search Tech and Real Estate on YouTube and find it there. Coffee Closers, it's with a Z, so coffee, C-O, and then Clozers, Clozers. You can start with a 7-day free trial demo as well. And you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. It's probably where I'm the fastest.
Love it. I'll put those links into the show notes. Ariel, thanks very much for joining us today. I love your story. It's a fantastic story, not just about real estate, but also about entrepreneurship. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money Seat Podcast. Please remember to click like and subscribe. It really helps spread the message to other investors, and it helps attract new viewers to the show. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much.